Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Firebrand Show. We are sitting down with one of our favorite guests here, Eliot Bland, for another conversation. This is his third episode, so buckle up, get ready, and let's get started. Before we get started, we wanted to talk about Las Vegas for a second.
Yeah, because that's where we live.
That's where we live. And we've had guests come on the show that have to come in town, and we show them places like Eliot. He was with us when we filmed all these episodes for a couple of days, and we got to show him around Vegas. And when people think about Vegas, they usually think about what?
Casinos and gambling.
Mm-hmm. Drinking, partying.
Yep, all the nightclubs.
Yep. Really gross looking.
And then people start thinking about some of the fun shows that are there. But there's some other good things, obviously, about Vegas that we'd love to talk about.
Yeah. We've lived here for a
year.
1 year.
Yep.
September was 1 year. And we've definitely found that there's a lot outside of the Strip. And every time people come, one of the things that we love doing is food. Like anything food related.
Some of the best food.
Some of the best food.
Yeah.
Some of the best food. What are your favorite places? If you ever come to Vegas or you live in Vegas, here are your recommendations.
So many good options. If I were to choose a few, there's this Asian-style burger place called
I knew that was going to be the first one you brought up.
Fuku Burger, F-U-K-U, amazing. If you ever get a chance to try it, come to Vegas and try it.
What's your order?
I get the chicken katsu.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Spicy chicken katsu. That's
the teriyaki burger is really good.
Yeah. It's not like the other one I was thinking of. It's not like crazy popular, but I just love it. It's Crunchies, which is Korean hot dog, which is basically a corn dog.
Yeah, and those are, I mean, there's a couple crunchies around Vegas, but those, like Crunchies and Fuku are in the same area, Chinatown.
Mm-hmm. Chinatown is great food, obviously.
The Paleta bar down there, too.
Yeah.
We could just give you a lot of recommendations in Chinatown. Gabby Coffee House. We can keep going.
We can just say the food is great.
The food is great in Chinatown.
Food is great. What else is there?
Vito's Tacos.
Yep.
Vito's Tacos. Just go look them up.
Tacos El Gordo.
Tacos El Gordo. Obviously, yes. Tacos, Mexican food here is really good. But Vito's Tacos, go look them up. Like, you will not be disappointed.
And once you have all this delicious food, there's lots of great hiking.
There is a lot of hiking.
Around Vegas, because we're surrounded by mountains. Mm-hmm. Great hiking trails. Red Rock Canyon, which is right next to Vegas. Beautiful spot. Lone Mountain, yep.
We also are like 2 hours from St. George, Utah, which is southern Utah, right near Zion.
Mm-hmm.
We're 2 hours from there. We're 5 hours to the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beach, like ocean beach, not like man-made Lake Mead.
No,
ocean beach.
Ocean.
We have a cool spot called Boulder City. Like, there's a lot out here that I don't think people realize. Vegas is...
Hoover Dam's right down the road.
Yeah. Vegas is so much more than the 4-mile strip that you see online. Like, there's so much life outside of it.
Yeah.
It's so funny because people... I didn't believe it until we moved here when people are like, oh, where do you live in Vegas? Like, people don't realize, like, there's community and housing outside of the Strip. Like, no, we don't live in hotels on the Strip. That's a common misconception for people who live in Vegas.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots to do in Vegas.
Lots of great things about Vegas. It's becoming a sports hub.
Which you appreciate.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You've got F1 coming to Vegas. The Golden Knights just won the Stanley Cup last year. The Las Vegas Aces won the WNBA last year. They're in the playoffs again this year.
You're talking about bringing basketball?
They're going to bring
baseball?
the Oakland Athletics down here to be the Vegas Athletics. And then there's talks already of bringing the NBA here.
Yeah.
So Vegas is now becoming a sports hub.
Yeah.
Which is
They're
great.
really trying to turn it into like a city that's desirable to live in. Not just desirable to visit.
Outside of the gambling and casinos.
Yeah. Which is such a small part. Even when you go onto the Strip, there's still stuff to do outside of it.
Yeah.
Like
I
there's
said,
good food.
Great
there's
shows.
There's things to see. Mm-hmm. Like it's M&M World, our kids love. Hershey World, M&M store, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right.
But we're going to dive into today's conversation with Eliot, and we can't wait for you guys to watch it. We are excited because we have someone who's become a regular on this episode or on this show. It is your third episode with us at this point, and I'm really, really excited to have you back on and to chat. So for those who maybe didn't catch the previous times we've had Eliot Bland on the show, why don't you tell them a little bit about
Eliot with one L.
Eliot with one E or one L and one T.
One E
one
as well.
E, one L, one I, one O, one T. Just let's get them all out there.
When I first met you, I thought it was because the Eliot with 2 L's and 2 T's was taken. Like, that's what I thought. I was like, it must be taken on Instagram.
No. Yeah, my parents just decided to name me different. But yeah, Eliot Bland from Southern California. I lead Youth Alive down there, which is just an initiative for students to reach their campuses. And it's been amazing. I've been a youth pastor before that for 7 years. I've been doing this for 2 years. I'm married to my wife, Tanner. We got 2 sons, Sawyer and Dallas. But yeah, honored to be back on the show.
Yeah.
Really, really, really excited
today. We're excited. And so today's topic, the screen behind us says, is being good enough? And we want to talk about, what does it look like for students to think and believe that if they're just good enough in life, that they'll be saved, or if they're, they do enough good things that, God will look down on them and say, well, that's enough. That's good. What would you tell a student that thinks that, and how would you help them into, the next part, a relationship with Jesus?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And I don't know if you guys realize how perfect it is to have me as the guest on this, because I grew up like the most legalistic kid you could ever meet, Yeah.
You were raised in church, so.
Yeah, raised in church, pastor's kid. Yeah. And so, like I just grew up with a very like works-based faith. Yeah. I was always convinced that like I was gonna not make it to heaven. My biggest fear as a church kid was that the rapture would happen and I would get left behind.
We have talked about this, like our actual fear of this.
No, that was so.
Mine too.
I'll say this. That was my biggest fear growing up, right? Yeah. And my parents, who are pastors, by the way, one time I went home from school and it was. And I'm not young. I'm too old to really still be like scared of this, but it's probably like 6th grade or something like that. I get home from school. Everybody's supposed to be home. And I'm calling out like, Mom, Dad. Nobody's answering me.
No, they didn't.
It's fine. Mom, Dad. Nobody's answering me. I start like walking around the house, checking different rooms. Nobody's there. And the last room is their room. And there was rules like we couldn't just go into their room. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Yeah. And so I'm knocking and no one's answering. And so I open the door and my parents had left out shirts and pants and socks in the shoes and watches and glasses, all just like as if they had vanished into thin air. And so I just started like bawling my eyes out. And then they were hiding in their closet and they're laughing. And
that is so funny.
Yeah.
What a prank. Well done to your parents.
Dude. Yeah.
For naming you and pranking you.
I know.
They did great.
Yeah. And now I need therapy, but no, it's all good. Love them. But but I grew up with that mindset, very like works-based faith. It was all about, and maybe not even just, because I feel like this question's framed more in the perspective of like, I'm fine. You know what I'm saying? Like not works out of worry, but I think it coincides with both. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I think there's a passivity to like the whole idea of, well, I'm good enough. Like God will love me. Like I'm fine. I've done a lot of good things. But then also the other side of that is people who are living a works-based faith where it's all based off fear of like, no, I can't let God down. I don't want God to send me to hell. Like so I think both are missing the point.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
That God is for us and not against us, that from the start we were created for relationship. Like I think the base of this conversation is really more about having a correct view of God and our interaction with him. Because the answer is being good enough, just like I answered last time I was on the show. No. Yeah, the answer last time was yes, this one is no.
Right.
Because it's very clearly laid out in Scripture. This isn't a gray, ambiguous area in Scripture.
Right.
I think of Ephesians 2:8-9, for by grace we've been saved through faith, not a result of works.
Yeah.
We can't take credit for it. We can't boast about it. It's a gift of God. We did nothing to earn it.
Yeah.
We don't deserve it.
That's good.
God saved us not because of us, but in spite of us, right?
Yeah.
And so I think understanding salvation is important in understanding this whole conversation. But also, and maybe we'll get into this, maybe we won't, depending on time, salvation is transformation.
Yes.
So you become a new creation, and we are also called to righteousness. God is holy. And so there are like good works that take place in the life that we live, but the answer to this question is being good enough. It isn't.
No.
Yeah.
Because we'll never be good enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah, and exactly. It's a simple answer, but the complex part comes with explaining the why.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no, it's not enough. We're created for so much more than just working, And I always go back to like how when God created the earth, right? Like he created it, called it all good. He worked really hard, but then he also was like, I want to be with my creation.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that he calls us into. Like he wants to be in relationship with us. He doesn't want us just working and building a life and grow whatever. Like he doesn't want us doing that. He wants more. He wants a relationship with us. He wants to be in relationship with us. And that is what sets him apart from other religions and gods out there, right? Like that he wants to be in relationship with us so much that he sent his son to die on this earth so that we could have access.
Yeah.
And that's through the faith that you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? And so it's just so important to remember that God has more than just doing. We're beings.
Yeah.
And we were created to be with Christ and in relationship with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I always think, and I'm a servant person. Like I love just serving people, love doing good. Like that's just how I was raised as well. Like not necessarily with the mindset of if I don't do good, then I have the fear that God's not going to love me. But over time, I had to come to that realization, like being a servant to others and helping others, putting them before me wasn't going to be enough. And I had to have a relationship with Jesus in order to, make sure that I knew that I was enough then. Because, you see different generations respond in different ways on how they perceive and how they react to, God and his love. And we see Gen Z, they have access to everything they need through social media, through the internet. Like nothing impresses them anymore. So like you see churches try to do like these big things, big events, big serve things, and Gen Z is not impressed by that kind of stuff anymore. They don't want you to lay out a red carpet for them. Yeah. They want authentic relationship now. Yeah. And so this generation has come back to the point of like, we don't want the big show. We don't want the red carpet. We want authentic relationship, and that's what it boils down to. Do you have that relationship? Because like you said, from salvation comes transformation. And the Bible says people will know you as Christians by the way that you act. Yeah. So it's not led by you acting a certain way leading you to salvation. Salvation leads the way that you act out of
that's good.
That overflow of the heart.
Yeah. It's an issue of order.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole book of James is really the theme is not salvation through works, but putting your salvation to work. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I think it's that the age-old question of like, how far is too far? Is this technically a sin? Asking those types of questions are already missing the point. Yeah. Like you said, we're created for relationship. And I think even in this past season of life, being a youth pastor and stepping into a new role, traveling more, speaking more, doing a lot of ministry, good things, right? If I'm being honest, I feel like the last 2 years I've been the most effective in ministry I've ever been on paper, right? Yeah. But the most personally disconnected to God, because we get into Martha mode. Mary and Martha, the sisters of Lazarus, have Jesus over at their house, and Martha is so concerned with the dishes that needed to be done and the food that needed to be served. And I think we're quick to hate on Martha, but she's not wrong. Yeah. There was work to be done. That's that's the conundrum that we're in. There is good to be done. We should serve our communities. We should but what we were created for at our core is to be in his presence. Is to sit at his feet and to pour the oil out like Mary did, And so
like you said, I think it's a matter of order.
Exactly, 100%, because it's not an either or. Yes. But being good isn't enough.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is something that should happen.
Yeah.
Because the fruit of the life that we live, the fruit of the Spirit of God being in us should be evident, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
But yeah, we can get things out of order. Like you can talk to students or adults for that matter who are just like, oh, I'm just not ready yet.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You will never be ready.
Yeah.
It'll never be convenient for you. You'll never feel good enough. And that's the issue with works is really, again, I think with everything, I'm always talking about like tension. Like, I think living life authentically is really embracing the tension in things, because we like to just be one-sided on things. But the truth is there's a tension to like the people that you'll talk to about salvation who, because they haven't been good enough, feel like they're disqualified from salvation. But again, going back to Ephesians 2, before it says, for by grace we've been saved, verse 1 through 3 says, we were dead in the trespasses and sins in which we once walked, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit of our flesh that's at work in all of us, right?
Yeah.
There is community in brokenness. That's the beauty of this. This is why I like when I go to a youth ministry or a church, we don't make sense on paper, or we shouldn't. And if we do, then I feel like maybe something's off.
Yeah.
Because a church isn't about all of us getting together and looking and thinking and dressing and acting exactly the same. Like, I love a youth ministry where you see the gamer kid who is the most introverted person you'll ever meet, and the jock, the most popular kid in school, and then the skater and the kid who's barely stopped smoking weed, or they did smoke weed in the bathroom, like whatever. All of these kids all gathered in the same place, and the one thing that they have in common is brokenness, is the need for a savior. And so to those broken people, it's like that doesn't disqualify you. It actually is what unites you. But for the church kids like me, who grew up and our sin wasn't as visible as other sins. Like, we didn't hit the major ones, but still had sin, but it was more private and not as looked down upon or whatever. I grew up with this entitlement. You know, I'd hear people give their testimonies and they say things like, when I read that God loved the world, I felt like it applied to everybody except for me. I never related to that.
Wow.
I always felt like, God, if you love anybody, it better be me, because I didn't go to parties and I didn't have sex and, you know, these like major things. And I'm like, you owe it to me. But God doesn't owe us anything. I think getting really to that level of brokenness and understanding like, man, I just need to spend time with Jesus because that's what I was created for. It's so essential. You know?
We're created for community. I want to go back to something you said at the beginning. You used a term, legalistic. And like, that is a very scary place to get into as a believer. And that is, if you believe that being good is enough, then you believe that in legalism, essentially. You believe, okay, I'll just check the boxes and I'll make it to heaven. Right? And that could get into like different religions believing that, whatever. Like, we could go that route. But at the end of it, legalism is not what God created us for. He didn't create the Bible and go, okay, well, in order to make it to heaven, you have to do A, B, C, and D. The thing that he said, to get into heaven, we need to know him. And knowing him in translations like Greek, Hebrew, all that stuff, right? Like, knowing him isn't just knowing about him, it's knowing him, spending time with him. And it flips from what you kind of just said, where like, I deserve your salvation, to, oh, I want to be saved. Like, I don't deserve it. I need it.
Exactly. And again, it's like, you can do the right things the wrong way. And I think that's sometimes what legalism is. You could do technically the right things on paper, but with the wrong heart. And that's the thing. Even with sin, you see this all throughout Scripture. God is looking at the heart, because there's a point in one of Paul's letters where he's talking about the difference between eating meat offered to idols and not eating meat offered to idols. And it was all based off of the Jewish people who had become saved and then the Gentiles. And there was a disagreement. Some thought it was a big deal, others didn't. And he's basically saying, like, it isn't a big deal, but if you feel that it is and you do it anyway, that's sin, because God is judging your heart. And so I think understanding that God cares about our heart is so important in the midst of all of this, because, you can get caught up in this checklist of doing what's right, saying what's right, looking the right way. and completely missing the point.
Yeah.
And that's the danger of legalism.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. It's a dangerous place to be when you think that you are saved with works and rules and not through a relationship with God. You know, like if I check off all these boxes, well then, we lived in Nepal for a season, and that culture is very much so like that. And I think that was the first time that I actually understood the difference between knowing God and knowing God, right? Like knowing of him and actually knowing him and having a relationship with him, because you it's not legalistic. There's no ritual to it, you know, like God just wants a relationship the same way that we have a relationship with one another.
Yeah. But that's the thing though, when you get to the heart of it, you start to realize, like, I mean, everyone uses this example, but it's because it's a good example. I'm married and I love my wife, and I don't cheat on her, not because we signed a contract and because it's against the rules, but because I love her.
Yeah.
Why would I want to? And I think that's the thing, when it's rooted in relationship, the way you view things is different too. Mm-hmm. It's like, yes, there are things that we should avoid and stay away from when it comes to our relationship with God, but it isn't a have to, it's a get to.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it's that same part where Paul is talking about everything is permissible, but not everything's beneficial.
Yeah.
Right? He's talking about this idea of like, you can do whatever you want, but it's not, and that's the thing. Even this idea of like sin, and maybe this conversation is going in a different direction, but like, God is for us, not against us. He knows us better than we know ourselves.
Yeah.
And he loves us. And so even the things that exist that we should avoid and that we're called to abstain from, it is for our benefit. God isn't up in heaven, you know, with this arbitrary list of rules trying to trick us, right?
Yeah.
It's not like life isn't this SAT test that we're taking to see. It's like God is for us, and he has our best interests in mind. And I think when you understand that, submitting to his authority becomes a lot easier, because it isn't this like, whatever, Dad, fine. You know, it's like, no, I need you. Look at what happens when I do this on my own. It leads me to nothing but destruction. Yeah. And so it is this like willing, humble surrender. God, everything that I am is yours. That's good. Including the brokenness, you know, all of that.
That's so good.
Yeah.
It links back to an episode I want to point to before we thank Eliot, but a couple, I don't know the order of our episodes when we're recording this, but I know that an episode with Christian Falcon is going to be coming out before this one airs, and it's If God Forgives, Why Should I Stop Sinning? And it points directly to that. Like when you love God, just like you love Tanner, you're not going to cheat on her because you love her, not because you signed a contract and you got married. Like we love God enough to not want to do those things. Yep. And that's the relationship that we have with Jesus. So, yeah.
And even just final thoughts, like, you know, when it comes to, you know, where your heart is and the motive you have behind doing things, you know, if you're trying to do good or help others and you're looking at it as like, what can I get out of it? Instead of, you know, just doing something to benefit someone else. You know, maybe you do need to check your heart and see where your desire or your motive is coming from, because when you start doing things to help yourself, that's where you need, you know, a little bit more time with Jesus.
Maybe don't post it. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe don't post it.
You know, it's cool to help that person on the street, and it still counts when you don't put it on your story. That is a huge point as well. That could be a whole episode in and of itself. But that's a really great point, Billy, of like the unseen faithfulness, doing things for the glory of God. You know?
So not for the glory of man. Yeah, it's good.
For sure.
It's really good. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for another great conversation.
Always.
We're going to have you back, you know, again, I'm sure.
Come on.
A couple more episodes.
Whenever.
Yeah, we'll just sit in the studio for hours and let them just record.
I love it.
Well, thanks so much. Can you let everybody know again where they can find you on social media?
Yes, you can follow me, ELIOT.Boyd, BOYD, not boy. You know, some people thought my Instagram was Eliot Boy Band.
Oh my gosh, it makes
because
sense.
they just read it quick.
Eliot Boyd
like that, I'm
Bland.
a big boy band fan. But my middle
Eliot
name
Boyd
is
Bland.
Boyd, and my last name is Bland.
Which
That's
means
so funny.
boring.
Which means boring. I love that.
So that was a great conversation we had with Eliot. We always love having him here on the show. And that was about being good enough. And so, you know, I want to have a little bit of fun now. You don't know what I'm about to
I just know the name of what we're doing, but I don't know what it entails.
Okay, so we're all about spreading kindness positivity in this world. So you've heard of catcalling.
That's not spreading
No,
kindness.
but there's a thing called polite catcalling.
Okay.
So it's about saying nice things
Okay.
to girls that are walking on the street. There's this guy that does it on TikTok and Instagram that I got the idea from. So I'm going to say some things that he said to females in the street that they respond to, and we'll see how you respond to them.
So this is polite catcalling.
Polite catcalling. Ready for the first one?
No.
So I'm going to pretend like I have a megaphone on the
I
street
cannot.
while I'm saying this to you. All right? Girl, you look like you cleaned the stove after you cook.
What? Like, this is kind things.
Yeah, you just say kind things.
Wow.
Ready? Another one. Girl, you look like you scrub the dishes before you put them in the dishwasher.
I do.
See?
Okay.
All right, here's another one. You look like you know how to fold a fitted sheet.
Okay, I'm getting it. Okay.
You got it?
So these are things that, like, are kind.
Instead
but,
of
like,
saying, like, rude or mean things to a girl
Yeah.
walking on the street, you say nice things.
But you're still stereotyping.
No.
Yes, you are. You are saying that I look like someone who. So I'm a type A. You're stereotyping me.
I was just saying nice things. It doesn't have to be to someone specific. You're just saying nice things.
Okay, give me
Sometimes
another
they're
one.
true, sometimes they're not. Okay. This one,
Oh,
this is not a
gosh.
stereotype because this, I don't know if, we'll see. You look like you know the difference between there, and there.
Are you saying that I don't know the difference between there, and there?
Do you?
There.
Okay,
as in,
spell
like,
it first.
THERE.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
There is the coaster.
Yeah.
There. I cannot. THEIR.
Okay.
Like, they're in the studio with us.
Wrong already.
They are.
See?
That is
There,
THEY apostrophe RE.
There
Okay,
you
okay,
go.
okay.
The
And there.
THEIR.
I don't know how to put that one in a sentence, like, off the top of my head.
Like, that's their car.
Oh, that's their
Possessive.
car. Yeah, possessive. Yeah.
Okay.
I was close.
So
But
you were close.
You still, okay, but you still chose to stereotype me. Even
Okay,
though it
here's-
wasn't for me, you were like, you're not going to get it,
All right,
Ashley.
here's-
You stereotype me.
Here's my last one. Okay. You look like you stay seated after the plane lands.
That's not me.
That one's not you.
I get up and I'm like, get me off this plane.
But just about being respectful. Say nice things instead of yelling mean things.
I really like that.
Yeah?
Polite catcalling.
Polite
So they do
catcalling.
this.
Yeah.
Do they ever get negative responses?
Very rarely. Most of
Yeah.
the time it's like
Yeah.
girls.
We just
yeah.
we talked about Vegas at the top of the show. Like, can we just take a second and just picture these guys
would be
walking
fun.
down the strip doing this?
I
Maybe
would-
we should invite them to come out to Vegas and film a segment of them just doing that
That'd be great.
on the strip.
Yeah.
Catcalling, polite catcalling on the
On the
strip.
strip, yeah. It'd be unexpected.
It would be unexpected.
Yeah.
It would compete with all the other signage that's
All
down
the other
there.
performances.
All the
on
other
streets.
things happening on
Yeah.
the strip. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, polite catcalling.
Yeah, polite catcalling. It's a thing.
It's great. Don't stereotype me next time. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us and hanging out with Eliot these last few episodes that he has been on. It has
Yeah.
been an honor to have him, and we cannot wait to see you guys in next week's episode.